The day my mother came back from Europe, she hugged me like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't vanished for a month and left me with $5 to survive. I remember the way her perfume hit my nose while my stomach cramped from hunger, and I realized something terrifying. She expected me to smile and pretend it was normal. That's when I made myself a promise, at 11 years old, if she wanted to abandon me, I'd learn how to live without her, and one day, I'd make sure she felt what I felt. I'm Allison, and my mom liked to call herself free-spirited. She said it the way people say artist or adventurer, like it was something glamorous. But in our house, free-spirited meant unfinished dinners, unpaid bills, and a constant feeling that I was living in someone else's mess. We lived in a small apartment above a nail salon that smelled like acetone and burnt sugar. The walls were thin enough that I could hear the couple next door argue about their cable bill. Mom's name was Diane, and she carried herself like a woman who deserved more than she had. She'd stare out the window at the city lights, like the world owed her an apology. When I was little, I believed her stories. I believed she was just between opportunities. I believed the late fees were temporary. I believed her when she said, "Allison, you're mature for your age. You understand me." I didn't understand. I just didn't have a choice. The summer I turned 11, she started talking about Europe like it was a person she was in love with. Paris, she sighed one night, scrolling through photos on her cracked phone. The cafes, the art, the air. I swear I can almost taste it. I was sitting on the floor coloring in a book I'd found at the thrift store. My stomach growled, loud enough that I went still. Mom didn't even glance at me. "Mom," I said softly, "what are we having for dinner?" She waved a hand like a queen dismissing a servant. "We have food." We didn't. There was ketchup, half a loaf of bread, hard as a rock, and a jar of pickles. That was it. A week later, she came home wearing lipstick and excitement. "Guess what?" she said, bouncing on her toes. "I'm going to Europe." I stared, like, for a vacation. "For a month," she said, eyes shining. "A full month. Isn't that incredible?" My mouth went dry. "A month, but what about me?" Her smile faltered just for a second. Then she recovered, smooth as ice. "You'll be fine. Mrs. Carter will check in on you." Mrs. Carter was our downstairs neighbor, an older woman who watered her plants obsessively and acted like the apartment building was her kingdom. She didn't like kids. She once yelled at me because my sneakers squeaked on the stairs. I swallowed, "But I'm not allowed to stay alone." Mom laughed like I'd said something cute. "Allison, don't be dramatic. You're responsible. You can make cereal. You can microwave things." "We don't have cereal," I whispered. She opened her purse and pulled out something small, 5 crumpled bills. "There," she said brightly. "I'm leaving you money." I stared at the 5 single dollars in her hand. My throat tightened so hard it felt like I was swallowing glass. That's $5. She frowned at me like I was being ungrateful. "It's enough for emergencies." "Food is an emergency," I said, and my voice cracked. Mom's eyes hardened. "Don't start, Allison. You always make everything heavy. This is important to me." I remember standing there, holding those bills, feeling like they were burning my skin. She was leaving, and she didn't even feel guilty enough to pretend it hurt. The next day, she packed like she was going to a different life. New clothes, perfume, jewelry. She even bought a fresh suitcase. I watched her zip it up and wondered how she could afford that but not groceries. That night, I lay in bed listening to her on the phone with someone named Greg, her boyfriend of the month, a man I'd never met who always seemed to exist in the background of her laughter. "I deserved this," she said into the phone. "I've sacrificed so much." I stared at the ceiling in the dark, and something inside me went cold. Sacrificed. For who? For me? The next morning, she kissed my forehead in a rush. "Be good," she said, already halfway out the door, "and don't be weird." Then she left. No long hug, no instructions, no stocked fridge, just $5 and the sound of her footsteps disappearing down the stairs like I was nothing more than an item she'd forgotten to pack. For the first few hours, I didn't move. I sat on the couch and watched sunlight crawl across the carpet. My brain felt too big for my skull, like it couldn't hold the reality. Around noon, my stomach started to hurt. By evening, I was dizzy. I tried calling Mom. It went straight to voicemail. I tried calling Greg because his number was on a sticky note by the phone. He answered once, annoyed. "What?" he snapped. "It's Allison," I said. "My mom left. I'm alone." There was a pause, then a laugh, like I was interrupting something fun. "Kid, your mom's living her best life. Don't ruin it." Then he hung up. That was the first time I understood that I wasn't just neglected day, was inconvenient. The second day, I ate bread dipped in pickle juice to make it feel like a meal. I drank water until my stomach sloshed and pretended I was full. By the third day, I realized something. No one was coming. Mrs. Carter did knock once. When I opened the door, she stood there with her arms crossed, looking me up and down like I was a stain. "Your mother said you'd be fine," she said. "I'm hungry," I admitted, and it felt like confessing a crime. Mrs. Carter's lips thinned. "Children always think they're starving." Then she walked away. That night, I cried silently into my pillow because I didn't want the neighbors to hear. I didn't want anyone to know I was helpless. On the fifth day, I got desperate. I took the $5 and walked to the corner store. My hands shook so badly the coins rattled. I bought the cheapest thing I could, a packet of instant noodles. I didn't even have enough left for a drink. Back home, I realized we didn't have electricity. The power had been shut off. I sat on the kitchen floor with the noodles in my lap and started laughing. This cracked, broken sound. It was so absurd it almost felt funny. Then, I heard a knock. I opened the door and saw Emily, my classmate from school. She lived 5 buildings over. Her mom, Marissa, stood beside her holding a grocery bag. Emily said, "You haven't been coming outside." Marissa said gently, "Are you okay?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to pretend, but the smell of food coming from that bag hit me like a punch. My eyes filled with tears before I could stop them. "I'm alone," I whispered. My mom left. Marissa's face changed instantly. "Left where?" "Europe," I said, and my voice sounded ridiculous even to me. "For a month." Marissa didn't speak for a second. Then she crouched down until she was eye level with me. "Oh, honey," she said, and her voice cracked with anger that wasn't even directed at me. "No, absolutely not." That night, I ate spaghetti at Emily's kitchen table like I'd never eaten before. Fast, desperate, ashamed. Emily watched me with wide eyes. Marissa kept putting more food on my plate like she was afraid I'd disappear. After dinner, Marissa made calls. Her voice was sharp, controlled. She paced the kitchen like a storm. I heard words like child, welfare and abandonment, and immediate action. I should have been relieved, but a part of me was terrified because if Mom came back and found out I told, she would hate me, and I still wanted her to love me. Isn't that pathetic? Even then, 5 days later, a social worker named Kara came to the apartment. She had kind eyes and a firm voice. "Allison, where is your mother?" she asked. I stared at my hands. "Europe, and she left you here alone." I nodded. "With $5, I whispered. Kara inhaled slowly. "Okay. I'm going to make sure you're safe. Do you have any family?" I thought of my grandmother, Mom's mother, who lived across town and barely spoke to Diane. "She doesn't like my mom," I said. Kara nodded. "That might be a good thing." That same day, I moved into my grandmother's house. Her name was Evelyn, and she ran her home like a fortress. Everything was clean, quiet, and sharp-edged. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask how I felt. She just handed me a toothbrush and pointed upstairs. "You'll sleep in the guest room," she said. "School starts in a few weeks. You'll follow rules in this house." It wasn't warm, but it was safe. There was food, lights, a locked door. 5 weeks later, Mom finally called. Her voice on the phone was bright and breezy. "Allison, hi, sweetheart. How are you?" I held the receiver with shaking fingers. "Where are you?" "In Italy," she laughed. "It's gorgeous. You wouldn't believe the views. You'd love it." My stomach twisted. I got taken away. Silence. Then, what? "A social worker came," I said, voice thin. "I'm at Grandma Evelyn's." Mom's tone turned furious so fast it gave me whiplash. "Why would you do that? Why would you embarrass me?" "I didn't," I started. "You always do this," she snapped. "You always try to make me look bad." "I left you with money, $5, I whispered. She scoffed like that detail was irrelevant. "You're dramatic. You always have been." Then, she hung up. When she returned from Europe, she didn't come to Grandma's to apologize. She came to demand. 5 days after she got back, she stormed into Evelyn's living room in a white sundress, tan and glowing like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Greg trailed behind her with sunglasses on indoors. Mom looked around like she'd walked into a museum. "So this is where you've been hiding?" I stood near the stairs, heart pounding. Grandma Evelyn sat in her chair like a judge. "Diane?" Mom smiled sweetly. "Mother." Evelyn's eyes flicked to Greg. "And who is this?" Greg grinned. "Greg." Evelyn didn't return the smile. "Why are you here?" "Greg." Evelyn didn't return the smile. Why are you here? Mom's face tightened. I'm here to get my daughter. I sucked in a breath. My hands clenched into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. Evelyn folded her hands. No. Mom blinked like she hadn't heard properly. Excuse me. You abandoned her, Evelyn said calmly. For a month. Mom's voice rose. I didn't abandon her. I left her in the apartment. She's fine. She's independent. I heard myself speak before I meant to. I was hungry. The power got shut off. Mom whipped her head toward me, eyes blazing. Allison, Greg muttered. Kids exaggerate. Evelyn stood slowly. In this house, you will not speak to her like she's the problem. Mom looked stunned, like she couldn't process being challenged. You can't keep her from me. Evelyn's expression didn't change. Watch me. Then she reached into a folder on the table and slid papers across it. Mom's eyes darted down. Her face went pale. What is this? Temporary guardianship, Evelyn said, and a report. The social worker wrote everything down. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. You wouldn't. I already did, Evelyn replied. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my mother's face. Not fear for me, fear for herself. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty, because it confirmed what I'd been trying not to believe. She didn't care that she'd hurt me. She only cared that she might face consequences. Over the next year, Mom fought it. She sent angry texts, left voicemails calling me ungrateful, told anyone who'd listened that Evelyn had stolen me. But the truth was documented. The truth didn't bend to Diane's stories. And slowly, painfully, I began to realize I didn't need to chase her love like it was oxygen. Still, the ache didn't disappear. It just changed shape. By the time I was 16, I had straight A's, a part-time job at a bookstore, and a quiet determination that lived in my bones. Grandma Evelyn didn't say she was proud, but she started leaving extra snacks in my backpack without a word. That was her version of love. One afternoon, I came home to find Evelyn holding a letter, her mouth tight. It's from your mother, she said. My stomach dropped. What does she want? Evelyn handed it to me. Mom's handwriting was loopy, dramatic. Allison, I'm starting over. I'm engaged. I want you to be part of my new life. I'm having an engagement dinner next Saturday. Come. It's time to stop living in the past. No apology. No accountability. Just an invitation, like I'd been the one holding a grudge for fun. I stared at the paper for a long time, and then I smiled, because by then, I'd learned something important. Revenge isn't always screaming or slamming doors. Sometimes revenge is being calm while the other person expects you to beg. Went to that dinner. Mom held it at an upscale restaurant with dim lighting and fake candles. She looked radiant. New hair, new dress, new life. Her fiancé Martin stood beside her, older and polished. The kind of man who wore watches that cost more than our old rent. When Mom saw me walk in, her face lit up like she'd won. Allison, she squealed, rushing to hug me. I let her hug me. I saw her stiffen, confused by how still I was. Then she pulled back and whispered, See, this is nice. This is how it should be. We sat at a long table with Martin's friends, lawyers, business owners, people who spoke in polished voices. Diane played the role of devoted mother beautifully. Halfway through dinner, Martin raised his glass. I want to say something, he said warmly. Diane has told me how proud she is of Allison. What a strong young woman she's become. Mom nodded dramatically, eyes glistening like she was emotional. I felt my pulse steady. This was the moment. I stood up slowly, glass of water in hand. Everyone looked at me. Mom, single quotes, smile widened, expectant. I took a breath and said, Thank you. I actually want to say something too. Martin smiled. Of course. I looked at Mom, then at the table of strangers who only knew her version of reality. My mother taught me independence very young, I said softly. When I was 11, she left for Europe for a month. Mom's eyes flickered warning. She left me alone, I continued, voice calm. With $5, the power got shut off. I ate bread dipped in pickle juice until a neighbor found out. A silence fell so heavy, it felt like the room lost oxygen. Martin's smile slowly faded. Is that true? Mom laughed sharply, too loud. Allison, don't. It's documented, I said. And I reached into my bag. I pulled out a copy of the report Kara, the social worker, wrote years ago. I didn't slam it down. I simply placed it on the table in front of Martin. Mom went white. You brought that. I did. I said, because you invited me to stop living in the past. But you never owned what you did. You just tried to rewrite it. Martin stared at the report, his jaw tightening as he read. His friends shifted uncomfortably. Mom's voice shook. This is insane. She's bitter. My mother poisoned her against me. Evelyn had warned me this would happen. Diane always blamed someone else. Martin's eyes lifted, sharp now. Diane, you told me you raised her. I did. Mom snapped. I did the best I could. I looked at her and felt something inside me click into place, like a door locking. No, I said quietly. You didn't, and I'm done pretending you did. Then I turned to Martin, my voice polite. I'm sorry, I said. You seem like a decent man. You deserved to know who you're marrying. Mom surged up from her chair, furious, humiliated. Allison, sit down. But I didn't. I picked up my bag, looked her dead in the eye, and said the words I'd waited years to say. You left me starving. So, tonight, I'm leaving you with the truth. I walked out. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, voices murmuring, and my mother's sharp, panicked laugh trying to patch the cracks. Outside, the night air hit my face. My hands trembled as the adrenaline drained away. For a second, I wondered if I'd gone too far. Then I realized something. I wasn't trying to destroy her. I was just refusing to protect her lies anymore. That was my revenge. I stopped carrying her shame. I handed it back. A week later, she called me over and over. I didn't answer. Then, a message came from an unknown number. It was Martin. Allison, thank you for telling me. I ended the engagement. I'm sorry for what you went through. I hope you have a good life. I stared at the text, my throat tight, and I felt something unexpected relief. Not because Mom lost something, but because I finally chose myself. Years later, I still hear about Diane sometimes. She drifts through relationships, always chasing a new fresh start, but she can't outrun the truth. As for me, I built a life that doesn't depend on anyone's mood swings or selfish dreams. I went to college. I got a job. I learned what stability feels like. And Grandma Evelyn's silent Evelyn came to my graduation wearing a pearl necklace and holding a bouquet like she was trying to pretend she didn't care. But her eyes were wet. And that was enough. Sometimes, the most satisfying ending isn't watching someone else fall. Sometimes it's realizing you survived what was meant to break you. You've ever been abandoned, dismissed, or made to feel like you were too much for simply needing basic love? Please remember this. You were never the burden. If this story hit home, tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever had to expose someone's truth to finally protect your own peace? To finally protect your own peace.